Ahoy, mateys, and shiver me timbers. I'll be your Captain Andrew. And my first mate.
Sam.
And we're at Envy Board Gaming. And today we're going to take a look at the new John D. Clare game, Dead Reckoning, where we are going to be pirates setting sail and trying to control islands as well as fight off other enemy ships, all in a competition to earn the most plunder and the gold.
He's played it so much, he's turned into a pirate, literally.
Let me show you how it's played, and we'll come back and give you our final thoughts. All right, so Dead Reckoning is a game for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, that plays in about 2 hours. It is designed by John D. Clare. The art is done by Ian O'Toole, and it is published by AEG. In the game, players are going to be representing a crew of pirates that are going out and exploring the open sea, trying to control islands, produce plunder and gold, as well as maybe sink one another in combat. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of how it's played, and then we'll give you our final thoughts. All right, so I've already set up a game of Dead Reckoning, and I have set up the player area just to kind of give you a look of what your own player area is going to look like. So you're going to have your deck, you're going to have your harbor token if you want to use it, where you can store your cargo that you load or unload off at the harbor. You're going to have your shipboard with the cube that's going to track your sails. You're going to have your achievement markers. You're going to have your pirate token here, as well as a bunch of cubes, and your treasure chest, which is going to start with 15 coins in it to start the game. So you're going to have some money to start the game. Depending on if you're first, second, third, or fourth in the game, you're going to have a little bit of a variable setup. So if you're first, you're going to start with 1 cargo. If you're second, you're going to have 2. If you're third, you're going to have 4. And if you're fourth, you're going to have 2 cargo, as well as be able to level up one of your crew. All right, so at the beginning of the game, everybody's going to start with 4 cards in their hand. And what you're going to be able to do on your turn, it doesn't really follow a do step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of format, but you have 6 options that you can do in any order. So you have 6 different kinds of actions, some that you can take multiple times, some that are limited, but you can take any of them in any order. So I'm going to jump in and just kind of give you an overview of those, but the game does come with these nice little reference sheets to let you know what's kind of available to you. If any of the actions are limited, it tells you on that, as well as the cleanup phase and your level up that you're going to be doing in between turns. So let's jump in and look at each of these actions so you get an idea of how it is played. Okay, so for the first action available to us, we're going to look at the load, unload, rearrange, and jettison action. And that's going to revolve around any cargo or coins that you're going to have on your boat or in your harbor. So with this action, there's a little bit of some interesting minor rules that happen depending on where you are at. So at the beginning of the game, you start in the harbor, right? So you can load and unload your cargo onto your ship. And your ship is going to have these hold spaces. There are 4 total. I'm just showing you these first ones just for this example. But you're going to start with 1 hold that can hold up to 4 plunder. And then there's one off to the side here that I can show you that's going to hold 3, right? So at maximum at the beginning of the game, you can have 7 plunder / coins that you're going to have on your boat maximum. Okay, so on your turn, you can take any cargo. If you're in the harbor, take the cargo from the harbor and load it onto your boat, so long as you're following those restrictions of how much can fit in each hold. Okay, and vice versa, you can put it on the harbor if you're in the harbor. Okay, the same thing is going to be true if you are on an island that you control. So as we are playing, I'm going to come out here and zoom in a little bit. As you're going to be playing, you're going to be competing over controlling these islands. And the way you're going to be doing that, and we'll talk a little bit more, but you're going to be putting these cubes out on the board there, as you can see, and whoever has the most cubes is going to be in control of that island. Now, if I were here for this turn, and I was contemplating loading or unloading, I can take any items or cargo that I have on my ship, and I can also load or unload onto that ship that I control. Right? So if I control the island, I can load or unload my cargo there, okay? Because as these islands are going, we're going to be having an opportunity to produce on those islands, and they're going to be able to give us more plunder, okay? So if you control the island, you can load and unload as much as you want, okay? However, if it is an island that you do not control, you can still unload any plunder there. So I can still drop off cargo and coins there. However, if I do not control it, I cannot load plunder from the island onto my ship. So you have to keep that in mind, you know, of how do you want to use your cargo and if you need it, because if you put it on an island, someone could come along that controls it or that is going to try to control it to take that cargo or plunder, okay? So keep that in mind. If it's an island that you do control, you can load and unload as much as you want. If you don't control it, then you can only unload, okay? The other thing that shows is the rearrange, which is pretty similar. On your boat, anytime you can really just rearrange the cargo that's on your ship, right? So if I had one here and two there, right, you might not want to use up both holds, and we'll talk about why you might want to do that, but you can rearrange it to kind of consolidate your cargo that you have on your ship. Another thing is that at times you may have to get rid of cargo and plunder that you have on your ship in order to do certain actions. So you can jettison it, which is simply just throwing the cargo overboard, and you'll just take the cargo if it was in your ship and you'll put it back in the supply, okay? So that is how the load, unload, rearrange, and jettison action is going to come into play. So next, let's look at our play cards action. Okay, so for the next action with playing cards, it's pretty much what it sounds like. You're going to be taking cards from your hand and you're going to be playing them in front of you. Now, you don't have to use their abilities right away when you play them. You can just place them in front of you and then wait to use them or not use them in whatever way you wish. However, any cards that you do play during the game, whether you use them or not, are going to be put in your discard pile after your turn is over. So what you're going to be doing, and I'll go through these characters because they're pretty simple on how they each work, and kind of give you a little bit of a background of the iconography that you're going to see. So you have 12 cards that are in your deck, consistent of a number of different kind of crew, and each crew is going to have its own abilities. And what's nice is the game also comes with these little reference sheets to tell you what those abilities are going to be as you're upgrading those crew throughout the game. You have an idea of what is going to be available to you as you upgrade them, okay? So if we're looking at the crew is going to be a lot of how you're going to eventually, when you heal them or level them up, you're going to be able to repair damage on your ship, but they're also going to help you with a lot of production of cargo. So what you're going to be doing if you play this card and use his ability, you're going to be able to produce one cargo on your harbor. So whenever you see that little anchor symbol, it's going to mean harbor. If you see a little ship on it, it's going to mean you're going to be producing that cargo on your ship, okay? So as you're going along, if I play this card, again, I do not have to use the ability right away. I can wait. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of cover the play abilities action right now, since we're kind of already here. So you're going to have these cards that are going to allow you to play cargo, as I've already talked about. If we look at this one here, this is the Pursuer. So this little flag that has a cube is going to allow you to place a cube on an island where your ship is at. So as we were talking about just briefly, as I was on this island, I could, if I was here, play this card, the deckhand, in order to play one of my cubes on that island and trying to get more and more control. Okay, so the deckhand is going to help with you being able to do that, and you're also going to be able to gain some sales as you upgrade them. And again, I won't go through too many, but again, you're going to be able to see what kind of actions you're going to have available to you. So the deckhand is going to be good for playing out cubes as well as sailing. So that's that one. Here, you're going to have the Pursuer. Okay, this is going to allow you to produce on any one island. Okay, this does not have to be an island that you control, but you got to keep that in mind. If you're producing on an island that somebody else controls, you're essentially going to be giving them cargo, and as you upgrade them, you're going to be able to produce on more and more islands. They have to be different, but that is going to be the main thing with the Pursuer is going to be producing on your islands. Okay, so looking through your deck, we'll go through these real quick. you have the Buccaneer, who's mainly going to be putting out more cubes, and as you upgrade them, they're going to put more and more cubes out on the island. The Gunner is going to help you with producing cargo as well, but it's also going to give you some combat with these cannons, so that's going to help when you go to fight islands or other ships. Okay, and they're also going to have battle abilities as you are upgrading them. We already discussed the crew. The first mate is going to help with producing some cargo as well, but their main thing is going to be producing, or actually building buildings on islands that you control, and it's going to have a cost depending on what kind of building you're going to control. So what's nice about these cards is they show you what the next level benefit is going to be when you do upgrade them, so you don't have to keep referencing to the sheet unless you're curious about what's going to come 2 or 3 levels down the road. But you're going to be able to build a fort, a garrison, and an outpost, and those prices will reduce as you upgrade them even more. I already talked about the Buccaneer. Let's see, I have other cards over here. You have the Captain. So the Captain is going to have sails, which is going to help you to move further. It's going to have this pirate flag symbol here, which is going to allow you to initiate combat with individuals that are, or even merchant ships that are in mercantile mode. So you will need that if you're trying to start combat with somebody, unless they're in pirate mode, which we'll talk about later. Okay, and we already talked about these. So then you have, I hope I say this right, the Bassoon. And so this one is going to produce at the beginning, but what's nice about this one is that this is how you're going to get upgrades for your ship. Okay, so throughout the game, if you upgrade, this is one of the few ways you're gonna be able to get upgrades, but you're gonna be able to spend cargo in order to buy upgrades for your ship. And the way those are gonna work is you're going to get these little tiles and you'll be placing them out here on your boat, and they're going to give you more icons to do more actions or even make certain actions stronger. Okay, so that kind of covers the playing cards as well as using abilities. All right, and you again, when you play these cards, you don't have to use the abilities right away. You have to make sure, but if you don't use them after you play them, then they're just gonna be lost. But everybody's gonna start with the same 12 cards at the beginning of the game. All right, so that's how the crew is going to work. So next, let's take a look at how we set sail. All right, so when you're setting sail, you're gonna be focusing on your shipboard here. And this is where this little sail track is gonna come in handy. So the number of sails that are going to be visible on your board, you're gonna be able to add those up, as well as if you have any sails in your hand, you can play those and also use those sails for movement. So if I had the Captain here and I decided to set sail, I will get 3 sails because 1 on the card and the 2 that are on the ship. Now, when you're setting sail, you can only do this once per turn, so I cannot continue to sail. And this is where we kind of talk about the issue with cargo. If I have cargo in this hold that has a sail, I cannot use that sail to actually move. All right, so if I was not somewhere where I could load or unload, or if I didn't want to jettison it, I'm going to lose that sail because that cargo is there. So in this situation, if I had played the Captain, I would only get 2 sails. Okay, so this is where the load and unload is going to be important, because you might want to be able to move a certain number of spaces, and you have to decide what you want to do with the cargo that you've gathered throughout the game. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're setting sail. This is the one action that you can only do once on your turn. Okay, and since we're talking about setting sail, let's go ahead and talk about movement. So it's probably self-explanatory, but however many sails you have, that's how many spaces you're gonna be able to move on the board. So let's take a look at the board and see how movement's going to work. All right, so in that example, I had 2 sails. Okay, so when I'm moving, I'm starting on this main board here in the harbor. And what's gonna be important to know is that when you're in the harbor, all 3 of these tiles are considered adjacent, right? So you're gonna be moving orthogonally, up, down, left, right, not diagonal, unless you have an ability that says that you can move diagonal, okay? And so I could start here, and for one of my movements, I could go way up there if I wanted to, okay? So, but you're gonna keep track of the sails and how many movements you've used on your boat where we have marked our sails, okay? So when you're moving, you can move as far as you want. So if I had 3 or 4 movement, I could move from here and go all the way over here, skipping over this unexplored tile. That is fine. But when you're moving, you have to understand that you can only explore one unexplored tile on your turn. So I cannot spend, if I have 4, I cannot spend 3 to go here and then my last one to come back and explore 2 different tiles. Okay, I might just waste it if I'm surrounded by other unexplored tiles on the board. Okay, and when you explore a tile, so just for ease, let's say I was on this tile here, I would then flip this tile over. Okay, and then I have an ocean tile here, and I would immediately fill that space with an advancement card. And you're going to pull the advancement card. Oops, sorry. I'm going to pull the advancement card from the coordinating advancement deck that you're going to see up here. I believe the first one is fine. This is going to be a saga card, but it's not a spoiler or anything like that. So you're going to pull this out and you'll have an opportunity to interact or purchase these different advancement cards as you're exploring and moving through the board. Okay, so that's pretty simple. You can move back and forth however many times you want. Just know you only have so much movement depending on the number of sails that you have. Okay, so that is how movement starts, or how it works. So next we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into buying advancement cards. Okay, so when it comes to buying or encountering these advanced cards, these are all advancement cards. They're also referred to as advanced cards, but to know about this action, you have to remember that you can only interact or purchase 2 cards at most on your turn. Okay, and there's gonna be 2 different ones. You're gonna have these ones that have the illustrations at the top, which are going to be encounter cards, and then you're gonna have these ones that just have basically your abilities, which are going to be advanced cards or advancement cards, however you want to say it. Okay, and so when you're here, you can purchase or interact in a couple different ways. So if it's just a card that has an ability, I can purchase this. So if this was at this space, I can purchase this by paying for cargo that is on my boat. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to use cargo that is on your ship in order to purchase it. You cannot use the cargo from your harbor. Okay, and this ability is going to let me draw a card when I sleeve it in with one of my crew. So if I were to purchase this card, I would then put it off to the side, because I would then during your cleanup phase, you're going to have an opportunity to actually sleeve that ability. Okay, so then that's kind of your basic stuff when you're buying these abilities. The encounters here are going to work in 2 different ways. I can again still purchase this card by spending the appropriate number of cargo in order to gain the ability below. Or if I have one of those symbols I was talking about that lets you initiate combat, you can fight this merchant ship. And what you're going to do is you're going to flip this card over when you decide to do combat. Okay, and it's going to tell you how many cubes this ship is going to get when you can do combat. All right, you're going to have the ability to add up all your cubes, and I'll cover combat a little bit better, but it's going to give you some parameters of what happens if you win and what happens if you lose. And a lot of times they might even have these added abilities at the bottom that you'll be able to sleeve into one of your crew this turn as well. Okay, so those are the 2 different types that you're going to come into: advancements and encounters. And depending on what you want to do, you'll have some options on how you want to handle that card. All right, so that's going to pretty much cover the buying advances and resolving encounters. The last thing we already kind of talked about was the using abilities on the cards that you played, so I won't go into that, but I do want to cover combat real quick just so you have an understanding of how that works. Okay, so when it comes to combat, there's 3 different kinds of combat that you are going to encounter. You could combat one of the merchant ships that we've already seen. You can combat another player ship that you're going to be encountering on the board, or you could even be competing or combating with islands that have buildings on them. So if they have a fort or garrison, you may be fighting those as well. So I'm going to touch on each very briefly. There is a lot of overlap, but there are slight differences depending on which kind of combat you are going to do. So if we look at the non-player ship, they're going to get 4 cubes for this combat, which is going to be shown right there. So they're going to get 4 of these black cubes, and then what the active player gets to do is they're going to be able to count up and see how many cubes they're going to be able to use during the fight. And the way that's going to work is you're going to be looking at a number of different things. You're going to be looking at your shipboard here. Okay, and you're going to be adding up the number of cannons that you have on your board. So in this case, I have 4, so I will get at least 4 blue cubes from my ship there. Okay, another thing you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to use any cannons that you have on your crew. All right, so as you're upgrading them, you might get more and more cannons. So I'm going to go 1. Well, this one doesn't count. I'll explain why. So this one has 1 cannon here at the bottom, giving me an additional cube. However, there are some abilities that you're going to have that you're going to be able to trigger. So for example, this one gives me 1 cannon for every single one of those steering wheel, pinwheels, whatever you want to call them, that I have on this card. And as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3. So that's going to give me another 3 cubes. Okay, so right now I'm sitting pretty good knowing that they're going to get 4 cubes and I have 8 as of right now. Okay, and you're going to be able to potentially trigger off some combat abilities, and that is going to happen a little bit later. So what you're going to do is once everybody has tallied up their cubes, okay, you're going to take all of them in your hand and you're going to put them in the cube tower. Okay, so you're going to take them all and you just drop them in neutrally. You don't have to chuck them in or anything like that, but you're going to take them all in your hand and you're going to drop them onto the board. Okay, and then there's going to be a few things that you are going to be looking for. So let's kind of zoom in here to give you an idea of what you're going to be kind of searching for here on the board. Okay, so first and foremost, you're going to look and see if there are any cubes in this bursting shot area. If there is, let's say, for example, this cube was here, right? And it was in that space, I would pick up, blues might be a rough choice because this is a blue board, but you'll just pick it up and then you'll gain an additional cube so that then you'll re-drop them onto the board. And if it happens again, you just keep going. Okay, after that happens, you're going to make sure that everything is in a space. So as you can see, that is going to be possible for some cubes to be kind of tilted or leaning or maybe even balancing perfectly on one of these little barriers in between. So if it's tilting and it's kind of propped up, whichever space it's touching, that's what it's considered to be in. However, if it is evenly placed on a little thing, so let's say it was here, right? It was evenly balanced, not really in a field. What you're going to do is you're just going to pick that cube back up and re-drop it on the board. Okay, so after you've done that, in a non-player combat, you are going to be able to collect all the plunder that you're going to see. So depending on where your cubes fall, you're going to be gaining plunder. So I could be here, I'm going to gain 3 cargo on my ship. All right, and keep in mind when you do start combat, if you need to be able to use cannons, you can jettison cargo and all that kind of stuff before you start combat. But this cargo you're either going to load up or you're just going to kind of lose if you can't take it. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so you're going to go through and get cargo that you have. You can get coins. Some are going to say on your ship. I think they all here actually say on your ship with the little ship icons that you're going to see. So keep that in mind. Then after knowing that the non-player character is not going to gain any kind of cargo or plunder, okay, they will not get that. Then if there's any damage, again, non-player characters are not going to take any damage. It will just, if it wins, you're going to take the card off anyway. If it loses, the card's going to disappear anyway as well. It's going to get buried. Okay, so no matter what, this ship's going to go away. Okay, so but if they deal any damage to you, you're going to take that damage and place it on your ship using one of these damage tokens that you can see here. Okay, so that's how then you're going to do damage. But whoever deals the most damage is not how you're going to win a combat. Okay, the thing that's going to matter are going to be these little crowns here, and you're going to have spaces that have 1 crown, and here are spaces that have 2 crowns. Okay, and you're going to count up and see who has the most crowns, and you're going to determine who the winner of the fight is. So there is a little bit of luck based on where the cubes fall. So this one just happened to be in this 2 space, so it's going to get 2, 3, 4 crowns for those cubes. And then blue has 2 here, so I got a little lucky. I get 4, and there is 1 up here on the top part, so 5. So I would win this combat, and then I would gain the benefits there. Also, I will be able to place one of my cubes on the achievement track that is on the board, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to end game. Okay, now the only thing is I talked about resolving, okay, but I didn't really talk about battle abilities, because what you're going to be doing, and I figure I'd talk a little bit more about it when you're talking about players against players, because they're also going to be tallying up their cannons, they're going to be using their cards that they're going to be able to play in front of them. But one thing I want to focus on is that there are these battle abilities that you're going to have during the game. And what you're going to be able to do is, going back and forth, you're going to be able to trigger one of these battle abilities. So this one here lets me drop 2 additional cubes, but you'll go back and forth alternating until everybody has resolved their battle abilities or nobody has any, and then you can kind of move on. All right. So with the players, it doesn't really, it's all going to work the exact same way, except for they're also going to get plunder, and they will actually be able to take damage, obviously. If you do manage to sink their ship, what's going to happen is that ship is going to go back to the harbor, and you are going to get all of the gold that they have on their ship if it is 5 or more. If it is less than 5, they're going to take the money that's on their ship, put it in with their treasury box, and then they're going to take 5 out of their treasury and give it to you. So you are going to get some points, but again, it's not a huge detrimental blow if you do lose a fight. Okay? And then the last thing that I'll cover with combat real quick is going to be these islands. So if I look at this island I just kind of set up over here, you see that there are buildings that you're going to be building out on the island. Okay? You're going to have these forts and garrisons and outposts. So the way these are going to work is that a fort is going to block people from being able to interact with the island, putting cubes on them, that kind of stuff. A garrison is going to deal damage to anybody that moves through or stops on that space. Okay, so you might want to fight one of these islands in order to kind of take control of it. If you fight an island that has a fort, they're going to get 5 cubes. Okay, if you fight it with a garrison, they're going to get 2. And if they have both, you're going to get 7. The outpost is not going to produce any kind of defense against this island. Okay, so you can combat. However, let's say the island didn't have a fort, you could easily get rid of these buildings just by putting influence cubes and taking control of that island. Once you take control of an island and it switches over to a different player, these buildings are all going to go away. Okay, so combat's, again, going to be very similar. Obviously, the island's not going to take damage. They're not going to get plunder. They're really just going to be trying to inflict as much damage against you as well as trying to win the fight so that they don't get wiped off the board. Okay, so that is how combat is going to work. So now we've talked a little bit about combat. Let's go ahead and discuss the cleanup phase. Okay, so during the cleanup phase, we're going to talk about this real quick. We're wrapping it up, trying to make it not too long. So anyway, first thing you're going to do is you are going to refill any advances or encounters on the ocean board. So if I had done this encounter here, I would just simply take a card from the deck and replace it there. Okay, easy peasy, right? Next step is going to be to choose if you want to be in pirate mode or mercantile mode. So that's where this little token is going to come in handy. You can decide if I want to be in pirate mode, and if you do, you're going to place this here. Now, why would you want to do this? Pirate mode is going to essentially tell the other players that if you come into a space and stop there, you're going to have to fight me. So you might want to do this in order to protect different islands if you don't want anybody to try and come and take control and kind of deter them from even trying to mess with you. But if you're not prepared for combat, it could be a double-edged sword to where you may initiate a combat that you're not really looking to participate in. So this is going to be a good way to maybe deter people from coming over to you, especially if you have an ability to be able to, maybe take them out and discourage any kind of combat. So that's going to be something you'll be able to do during your cleanup as well. If you don't want to be in pirate mode, that's fine. You just take it back off and you're going to be able to stay in mercantile mode. Okay. After that, you are going to lose any unspent sales. So if I still had sales, it would just reset to 0. You're then going to sleeve any of your advancements, but you can keep 1. So let's say during the game, I did in fact get these 2 advancement cards. I can keep 1 for a future turn. However, I cannot keep more than that. unless they cannot be placed whatsoever, then you can. So what you're going to do is you're going to be able to sleeve those into cards that you have played during this turn. So it has to be ones that you've played, and you're going to choose one, and you will simply just take that card, and you are going to place it in with your crew. So, like so. What's nice is that each of these advancement cards are going to have these little indicators here to show you what slot they go in. And so there are 3 different slots where you're going to be able to place them. So it's going to be, you're going to be able to know, oh, can I actually take this? Is this somewhere I'm going to be able to put it? It's going to show you which slot that card is going to go in on your crew. Okay, so that is great as well. After you have sleeved those cards, last thing you're going to do is you are going to discard the cards that you played into a discard pile, and then you are going to draw 4 cards. Okay, so after you discard, you'll continue to draw. Your basic number is going to be 4 that you're going to be able to draw into your hand. So if you have any remaining cards, you can hold up to 6. So keep that in mind. However, as you're playing the game, that can change. So if you remember from this island that I showed earlier, it has this little icon here in the top right, and this is going to tell you that your hand limit is increased so long as you would control this island by 1. So instead of being able to hold 6, I can then hold up to 7. Okay, and there may actually even be abilities that let you draw additional cards as well. So kind of keep that in mind. So that is the cleanup phase. And with that being said, with your new hand of cards, so let's say, where did I put those? I think they're right here, maybe. Anyway, let's say this is my hand of cards, right? So I would then be able to, during other players' turns, level up one of these cards, okay? So it wasn't that one because obviously it's in my discard pile. But let's say I had these cards and I decided I wanted to level up this crew. I would simply take out this back card, flip it around to level 2, and re-sleeve the card, okay? And slide it back down, showing the new ability. Okay, so you only get to do that once, but you kind of have until it gets back to your turn in order to level up one of your crew members. All right, so that is kind of how a turn is going to work. Again, your actions you're going to be able to take in any order. So let's talk real briefly about how the end of the game works and how you're going to score points. Okay, so the end of the game is going to be triggered once somebody has placed 4 or more of their achievement tokens up on this top strip. Okay, so these are the different achievements that you're going to be able to accomplish during the game, whether that be exploring a certain number of tiles, spending some cargo, earning a certain number of gold that you have in your treasury, building a certain number of buildings, upgrading cards, getting upgrades for your ships, having permanent cubes, sinking a ship, and winning 4 combats. Okay, so once somebody has triggered that, everybody else is going to have one final turn, and there's some slight rules, but I'm not going to go into that because I know this teach is already kind of going a little long, but that's going to trigger the end of the game, and then you're going to score points. So let's talk about where those points are going to come from. Okay, so at the end, whoever is going to have the most money or gold is going to be the winner of the game. And you're going to have some last minute money that's going to be coming during end game scoring. You're going to get money from the achievements that we just discussed. So you'll get money from those. You're also going to get coins from what's in your treasury. You'll count those, any coins that you have on your ship and on any islands that you control. Okay, you will also count those. You will also get 1 coin for each building that you have on the islands you control, and you are going to get points for your ship upgrades. So advanced upgrades are going to give you 2, whereas basic upgrades are going to give you 1. Another way to score points is going to be through your end game advance cards that you're going to have on your crew. So if you ever see these like purple borders on these advanced, those are end game scoring. So this one is going to give me 2 points for each of this symbol. I have 4, so this card is going to give me 8 points. All right, and then the last thing is going to be the islands. So if you zoom in here, you're going to be able to see that whoever has the most cubes on an island is going to score the most points. And then whoever's second gets the second most, and third gets the third most. If there's ever a tie, both players are going to score, and then the next level down is not going to score any points. You kind of get rid of it. Okay, at the end, whoever has the most gold is going to be the winner, and that's how you're going to play and win Dead Reckoning. I know that was a long teach. There's quite a bit. I probably did not get every single rule in this teach, just because there is so much. And so, but that is kind of a little bit more than basic overview or teach of how to play. So yeah, let's take it back up top and give you our final thoughts.
Thank you, Captain Andrew, for that delightful teach.
Yeah, no problem. So, Dead Reckoning, right? I am a big fan of John DeClaire. And when I saw this on Kickstarter, I just had to back it right away. One, I love the pirate theme. I'm super into pirate theme games. I haven't played a ton of them just because I haven't seen one that was really necessarily kind of stuck out to me like this is what you want to play.
Yeah.
But when I saw this, I saw the board, you know, I liked the idea of doing card crafting. I hadn't played Mystic Vale, so I haven't played any card crafting games. And with the theme and all the different saga, you know, pirate legends and lore that gets pumped into the game, I had to back it. So I backed the game, have been super excited about it, followed it like all the way through just because there was so much anticipation that I had for this game. And I really kind of hyped it up myself just because I was so ready for this. Like the cube tower, the idea of exploring and fighting each other. It was everything that I wanted in a pirate game, or so I thought. So we'll see. Did I like the game? Did I not like the game? So let's jump in to positives. Samantha, I will let you go first so that I can keep myself from ranting.
Okay. So I think in general it's a cool cool theme, really cool art. I like the fact that they have the sleeves where you can slide the cards like in and out. I think that's really neat, like part of the game. And that it's
the card crafting part where you're kind of, okay.
Yeah, so I think that was cool. Reminded me of like Canvas with like the sleeves.
Right, yeah.
And I thought that was neat. And that, you know, it can change. You can change your cards. You're not stuck with exactly the same starter deck, essentially.
Right.
So you're able to get different cards. So I like the artwork. The theme is cool. Let's see. I think the components are really nice. The ships are cool. Like you actually have legit pirate ships. They don't look cheap or anything. I think it's neat that you kind of can name your own ship. And so yeah, I think it went very much with the pirate theme. And I like that you can kind of choose, there is fighting in it, but I like that you can kind of choose whatever kind of path you want to go in the game.
Right.
So
I will say that you do, if you play this game and you avoid conflict at all costs, you will not do well.
Yeah, you do have to fight.
And when I say avoid conflict, I mean whether that be fighting other ships, whether that be even conflict over islands, you're gonna have to compete with those islands because those are big points in the game as to who has majority, right? Those are gonna, and that's how you're gonna be producing. So you're gonna have to get in conflict with one another because those islands are going to be important, right? You don't necessarily, and what I like is that, kind of talking about my positives, is that what I like in this game is that, yes, there is conflict. However, if you lose a fight, like if somebody comes and fights you and you lose, there's not really, it's not completely detrimental to your strategy. It's not like you're knocked out of the game or you lose all your money and all this stuff. No. You might take some damage, and that might be it. Unless you sink, that's the only way that you're actually going to lose. And you're going to lose either the money that's on your ship or $5, 5 points, right? But that overall can be very slight kind of issue, right? So it's not too big of a deal if you do lose a combat. And I like that. It doesn't completely like knock you out. And you're like, well, I got beat, I got sunk, I'm completely out of the game, there's no way for me to come back kind of thing. That's not the case in this game. You can easily lose a fight and continue to push on, right? But again, saying, if you're going to go into this game thinking, yeah, it's a pirate game, but I'm just going to avoid conflict and do everything else, I don't think you can win, especially if you're not trying to compete over islands. If you're not, I don't think that's a viable option for a strategy. So I really do like the art. I really do like the Sea Dogs expansion that comes with it, to where you can give yourself a little bit more asymmetry,
Right.
and kind of starting with a different set of crew instead of just the basic 12. You can have those different abilities and things for those Sea Dog expansion. I did get all of the content for this game, so I did get the upgraded bits. So with the barrels, I got the metal coins, all that stuff. Looks really nice. I love the feel of the different cargo. The coins are very piratey. If you watch our unboxing, I just like how they're all kind of like damaged and beat up a little bit, and they have the cool little engravings on them. Feels very, pirate plunder like things.
Right, yeah.
So I really like that. I really like, although there is luck in the cube drops, I felt like it was very thematic for the pirate theme, right? Every time I'm dropping in, I'm thinking like cannons flying, shooting cannonballs back and forth at one another. You're in a pirate battle in the middle of the ocean. And, it is possible that you might have 6 or 7 cubes that you're throwing out, and the other person might have 3 or 4, and you lose. Maybe their cannons just hit the spot, right? And if you have a, if that is something that bothers you, I would say try to get some of those battle abilities, or really kind of load up on cannons if you want. But understanding that ultimately is going to come down to who has the most strength or glory, right? It's not going to be who deals the most damage that's going to have you win. It's going to be whoever gets the more of those crowns, right? But I felt like, it did take me a couple plays. So we've played this now. We played through the entire campaign and experienced most of the saga stuff. But we did play it a couple times beforehand, just to make sure that we had the rules down, kind of iron out anything that we didn't know. That way we could understand. I wanted to have a pretty good grasp on the game before I tried to teach it to others, or even trying to jump into the campaign and add the saga content as well. So I really liked the exploration. I really liked the production. I really liked how each crew in your hand felt vital to your gameplay. Like there were some meaty choices as to who do I want to level up? Who do I want to sleeve this card into? I felt like those decisions mattered, and every time I would go one strategy, be like, oh, I could see how this is viable. And I could see how each thing was important and how each one I could build a strategy, maybe I want to go heavy cannons, or maybe I really want to go with drawing cards and producing islands and using those little, pinwheel things to trigger abilities. I really liked that, and building up that crew and everything. I thought the achievements were nice. They even had the achievements that you could get at the beginning to kind of give you a sense of direction. But it gives you kind of a goal to go after. I thought that was interesting. As far as setup and teardown, teardown takes probably a little bit longer because you got to take out all the cards that you sleeved and whatnot. But it could take, a good, I guess I would say the way that they have it packaged does help, but it probably takes a good maybe 10 minutes to set up. Not too bad, 10, maybe 15 if I'm thinking right. Because everybody has all their stuff already in their things. You're just kind of setting up the tiles. Right. So really, I would say maybe 10 minutes to set it up. It doesn't take that long. The game does play a little long. I would say, they are very accurate on the box. I think it says 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 120 minutes. So it is going to play that 2 hours, I think, especially when you're adding the saga content in, which we won't spoil, but you might be reading out of a book or doing different things, kind of encountering that saga content. So, that could add a little bit of length to the game. So while we're kind of talking about that, let's talk about the saga content. We won't spoil anything and tell you what is in it. What we did when it came to the saga was we played a couple times. We played twice before we jumped into the campaign. And then the first game of the campaign, we just played with the first saga. And then after that, having a little bit better understanding of how that worked, we wanted even more saga in our game, so we went ahead and threw the second one in there because a lot of a lot of the stuff that is in the second saga plays off of the first. So you could easily mix it all together, and it doesn't add that much more to the actual gameplay. Now, this isn't a spoiler because it's in the actual rules, but there will be ways for you to get additional ships in the second saga. So it's not like you can look at the rule book and it talks about additional ships that you may or may not be able to encounter or use in that saga. So again, not really a spoiler because it's literally in the rule book. And then they have, but it's a lot of encounters. So I will say, what did you think about the saga stuff that we've encountered most of it? What would you say is your feeling on the saga?
I like the saga because I feel like it adds just much more to the game.
Right.
I like that it has, a story mode, just being able to like not anticipate what's going to happen. And not necessarily that it's all bad stuff. Like sometimes it's good stuff. So, I mean, I like that in games, like with the whole saga is like the story behind it.
Right. I guess when I was first going into it, I thought there would be more story. Like at the beginning, you'd get this like story and everything, but that wasn't the case. It's more like there are multiple storylines in this content, right?
Yeah,
and depending on what you come across, you kind of get pulled into that little storyline, right? So you might meet somebody or do something that tells you, oh, well, you could do this or try to find this, or this is going to help you do something else, XYZ.
You're then kind of committed to that story.
Right.
And it's going to be different from like your story compared to mine.
Right. So the things that I encounter could be completely different from what you encounter. But then there also might be times when we stumble upon a similar storyline that could eventually converge.
Like merge, yeah.
And it's almost like, ooh, I need to figure out this before she does, or, however that works. But I would say each of the storylines, or I guess, I just want to call them, like, there's just a bunch of different storylines thrown into each saga. And the second one kind of builds off some of them from the first box of content, right? And so I really like that. It wasn't what I anticipated, but I feel like I can say this, is that of all the pirate, well, I'll say all but one pirate legend or lore that I can think of is in the game, right? If you're thinking, oh, I wonder if it has this in it, chances are, yes, it's in there, right? If there's only one that I can think of that I haven't experienced and I don't believe is in the game. But I do know they're coming out with a third saga Kickstarter later this year. So I'm hoping maybe that one's in there, and I'll be really excited for that. Just because I really have enjoyed going through that. And there have been some moments I was like, what? Like, this is so cool that this is happening. Like, I got that excitement out of the game when I come across something and something crazy happens. And I like that, because there are times when I got something super cool and you were like, what? This is ridiculous. How does that happen? And then very next turn you get something and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. And yours was equally as awesome as the one happened to me.
I was like, what? Like, that's not what, I didn't get anything like that. And then it was literally
the next turn.
I was like, oh
yeah.
Thankful.
It was pretty crazy. And so there have been those moments that we've had playing through the game. Now, if you don't actively go after the saga stuff, because they have them marked, it's kind of like a 1.00 or 2.00 based on the card in the top corner to kind of let you know that it's saga content. If you're not actively trying to go after those cards, you're not going to encounter these things. But for us, I was like, I really want to experience this. Whenever I saw one of those cards, I was going for it. I don't care if it's good, bad, ugly, whatever. I wanted to experience it. And so when it comes to this content, you have to kind of make that a focus. If you want to experience it, you're going to have to go and do those things. Otherwise, you could go an entire campaign and not really encounter it. But I would hope that when you're throwing it in there, you're going to do it anyway. If it's what you want to experience. But again, that's going to be up to you. You're going to unlock throughout the course of a campaign or just playing it throughout it, you're not going to unlock everything, right? You're going to have to unlock this gradually throughout your games as you're playing through the saga content and unlocking these things. But you're not going to see it all within 1 play, 2 play, 7, 8 plays, right? You're not going to see all of this stuff come out. It's going to be something that you're going to gradually discover throughout the game. And I pleasantly liked it. I thought it was very, very cool how they kind of incorporated those things. So I like that part of the game. Overall, did you like the saga content? I think you might have already answered that.
I liked it, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about negatives. What are your negatives for the game?
Well, I am very non-confrontational when it comes to games. So the fact that it's kind of like a fighting game, I mean, it is pirates. Like, for me, I was like, I'm not one to want to have a lot of conflict. Right. And this is a game where you're going to have a lot of conflict. And I kind of just was like, well, I'm trying to experience the game and not really let that hold me back from playing it. But it's just not my, like, cup of tea, I guess you could say. I felt like it's too long for me. Okay. With it being like, it's going to take at least 2 hours. Like, we've played it, and even if we're taking like fast turns, it still takes about 2 hours. So for me, that's just a little too long for me when it comes to games. Like, I'll still play it, but it's one of those that does take longer.
Right. It is like a 4X game. You know, it is expected to be a longer game. Yeah, I think we have played it a little under 2 hours, but typically, yes, we're right around that 2 hours.
Yeah. So you have to commit.
And I had prolonged it. You were like, don't end the game right now. I want to do something. I was like, okay, I'll prolong it a little bit. I did do that a little. But yeah, so I
the saga makes it a little longer,
right? Because if you're reading through the encounter book, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, that is going to add some time. It is, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say probably those are just like my only negatives. I think overall, like, it's a nice game, and the components are super nice, and the artwork and everything. But like, for me, those were the two big things.
Right. For me, I don't find the time to be a negative for me. And sometimes it will be, because a big thing is the amount of time that I'm investing in this game, whether it be setup, tear down, learning the game, and the actual play. Am I getting my return on investment and how much I enjoy the game? Now, in this game, this is one of the few games that's a longer game that I don't realize how long it's taking to play because I'm enjoying it. And so I don't mind that it's a 2-hour game because I don't realize that it's taking 2 hours because I'm enjoying it that much, because I'm loving the meaty decisions. Even like, I like the kind of like in between your turns, you get to upgrade one of your sailors, and you might want to wait and be like, oh, are you going to come after me? Well, then I'm gonna wait and see who I'm going to upgrade. But then, you know, you're kind of paying attention to what other people are doing, because then you're going to upgrade your card and you'll be able to use it, or level them up, I guess I should say, to use for your next turn. And so for me, the negatives, there is some luck, like I mentioned already, with the cube towers. You know, you could be chucking a ton of cubes and somebody else only has a few and they beat you, right? But ultimately, if they only have a few cubes, chances are they're not going to sink you, right? And you're going to get more plunder and more coins anyway, which is going to be a big thing, because you're going to get so much stuff that you can put on your ship. You'll probably come out ahead, right? Yes, you might not be able to put a cube on that achievement, but so understand there is some luck. You can mitigate some of that luck, but ultimately that cube drop is going to determine who wins and who loses.
Right.
But again, I don't really care about that much, because if I lose, it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's
and
not.
I think for some people who don't like conflict, they might see that and be like, I want to stay away from this game because there's conflict. I promise you, it's not that big of a deal.
It's not that detrimental. For me, I think more of like the conflict is like you taking over my territories. Right. For me, that is islands? Yeah, the islands, like that for me is more like, oh, like that was mine, you know. I mean, the fighting.
I would trash talk during the game. I'd be like, you want to mess with my island? Because I'd come for you.
I'd be like not even near him, and he'd be like, do it, just do it. And I'm like, I'm not even close to you.
Sorry, my inner pirate was coming in.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I mean, the fighting isn't as detrimental as you think. And for me, I was kind of relieved about that because I was like, oh.
Right. And so the other negative is it is a bit of a teach, right? The rule book is fine. It's not the best. It's fine. I definitely have to refer back to it some. I do like the player aids help with that, and even seeing like what the upgrades are for each of your crew. But it is a bit of a haul. It is a bit of a teach. So this is what I'm going to have to be able to sit down and talk to somebody for a little bit to kind of teach them, because it's not like a normal game where you're going through steps 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like, okay, here's your turn. You can do these options, these actions as many times as you want. This action once, this action up to 2 times. And so you got to kind of keep track of, okay, which one's can I do as much as I want? And you know, there is some things to keep track of. And do I unload or reload and get my sales? Like, I just want to maximize my sales, and how do I do it? You know, which island can I unload but not load up on? Yeah. And after you play it for a couple times, you'll get the hang of it. But I definitely would recommend playing it a couple times before you try to teach somebody else.
Yeah, because you're gonna have a lot of questions.
Yeah,
you're gonna be like, "Can I do this?"
But it's a heavier game.
Like. But yeah, I mean, it will take you a few times.
Right. But then I do feel like turns can be pretty snappy, right? And you can plan ahead. What do I want to do? You know, so by the time your turn comes around, you're ready to go, and you have that kind of figured out. So thinking about that for my preparation, setup, that is a bit of the setup isn't bad, but learning the game can be a little rough. You're gonna have to play it a couple times. Production, I really enjoyed. We talked about that. I really enjoy the gameplay. I think it has some really nice decisions. I really like just how the mechanics all kind of work together. I feel like it flowed pretty seamlessly. Battle kind of pulled you out of that a little bit to drop the cubes and whatnot. It might slow the game down a little bit, but it still felt thematic. I thought it worked when it comes to gameplay. So overall, and I think I got a lot more enjoyment out of it based on, even though I invested a lot of time. So that really did kind of bump this up for me. So I'm going to jump into final scores. This is one that I really like. If I'm going to play a pirate game, this is the kind of pirate game that I want to play. I'm very excited for the next Kickstarter with additional Saga content, because I want to add that in there. And so I'm going to give this, I'm at an 8.8. I really like this game. It would be higher, but it is a little bit lengthier and a little bit difficult to teach. It's not one I'm probably going to get to the table a ton, which is unfortunate, because I really like this game. And knowing that we play a lot of 2 players, and my wife's not big on conflict, so we'll see how much we get to play it. But I am excited to try this solo, because the solo seems very streamlined and easy to follow as well. But that is, so I'm sitting at 8.8. Very satisfied with this game.
I think that when we do play it too, like, we'll leave it set up. Like, we'll leave everything set up and then play it like the next day.
Right, we'll play it multiple times.
Yeah, because I mean, kind of packing it away and bringing it out and stuff. But if you have kids or cats, or you know, you can't really do that.
Can't leave it out, right.
Yeah, that are gonna mess with it. But for me, overall, my rating, I would probably give it a 6.
Right.
Just because, you know, I'm not really big into conflict. I think it is a cool theme. I will still play it. The Saga bumps it up for me, though, because I think without the Saga, it would probably be like a 5.5.
I'm so excited about the.
Yeah, the Saga makes it way better for me. So yeah, I'm giving it a 6.
Right. So there you have it. I definitely, if you've seen our video and we talk about, like, you know, what kind of games we like, I definitely tend towards the heavier games. Samantha tends to lean towards more of the lighter family style games, and so
fluffy,
right? And so there's our thoughts. What is your favorite pirate game? Are you excited about this game? What are some other pirate games that you would recommend us playing, especially for me, because the pirate theme, I can see that there's more and more pirate theme games.
You really like pirates and like Vikings.
Yep, Pirates and Vikings and exploration, and this has
Yeah.
exploration in it too. So yeah, please let me know. I would love to check out some more pirate themed games in the comments. Also, please give us a like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get a notification every single time we post a video. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Bye.